Hey there, Wolfpack. Today is Monday, September 30th, 2019. I'm Brooklyn Williamson.
And I'm Destiny Stewart.
And this is your Wolfpack News. Brooklyn Williamson.
Bryce Jones. I'm Dean Shrewsbury.
Have you heard of the phrase 12 years to act on climate change? It doesn't mean the world can wait until 2030 to cut greenhouse gas emissions or that chaos will erupt in 2030, but here's what it does mean. We have less than 11 years left to transform our energy system away from fossil fuels to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, if we're gonna leave this planet healthy and habitable. You might be wondering where that number came from. Well, basic physics and climate science allows scientists to calculate how much CO2 before global warming exceeds 1.5 degrees Celsius. Missing the target doesn't imply the onset of cataclysmic climate change in 2030. Things just keep getting worse and worse until we stop making them worse, and then they never get better. The world will still exist if we breach 1.5 degrees Celsius, but the climate impacts and risks will be higher and the temperature will be higher, said Glenn Peters, research director at the Climate Research Center in Oslo. That all seems to be sinking into public awareness, he said, but in terms of deadlines, we've already missed the deadline. We should have started mitigating decades ago, then we'd have the problem solved. And here's to hoping we have a solution to climate change soon.
Welcome to the Big Brain Challenge. Information guaranteed to blow your mind.
I am the smartest man alive!
Sir Alexander Fleming, a Scottish researcher, is credited with the discovery of penicillin in 1928. At the time, Fleming was experimenting with the influenza virus in the Laboratory of Inoculation Department at St. Mary's Hospital in London. Often described as a careless lab technician, Fleming returned from a 2-week vacation to find that a mold had developed on an accidentally contaminated Staphylococcus culture plate. Upon examination of the mold, he noticed that the culture prevented the growth of staphylococci. Penicillin then went on to revolutionize modern medicine.
Here is some international news from the African continent. The nation of Nigeria had to evacuate 640 citizens from the country of South Africa after xenophobic attacks. To be xenophobic means to have prejudice against people from different countries. There has been a recent outbreak of this kind of anti-immigrant thinking in South Africa. Nigeria's president is calling for South Africa's government to take a step into ending this intermittent violence. Just a few weeks ago, 10 people, including 2 foreigners, were killed after violence and looting erupted in Johannesburg, and it extended into neighboring towns, and most of the looted businesses were owned by immigrants of Nigeria and other countries. These attacks have caused tension and a Nigerian backlash against South Africa. Nigeria has taken measures to aid the victims of these attacks by allowing them to take refuge back home. Nigeria has even recalled its ambassador, and some Nigerians have even retaliated by looting and destroying some South African businesses. The Nigerian government has called for the South African government to take action and stop these attacks. And in response, the South African government has called for the arrest of the people involved in the xenophobic attacks. This is just the latest and possibly the most violent example of a tide of anti-immigration fever that seems to be sweeping across the entire globe.
Here's a story that will warn you about the dangers of living online. An 11-year-old boy drove 200 miles across South Carolina to meet a stranger he only knew on Snapchat, reported the Charleston Police Department recently. After 3 hours of driving, the young boy spotted a police officer, pulled up next to his vehicle and said he was lost, according to the police. The child drove from the northwest town of Simpsonville to Charleston. He told the officer early morning he had taken his brother's car to go to Charleston, where he wanted to live with an unknown male he met on Snapchat, police said. But when he lost GPS signal on his father's tablet, he couldn't recover the man's address, police said, as Snapchat messages disappear or are deleted after they're read. The child was able to give the officer his name, his father's name, and his cell phone. Happily, we can report that he was reunited with his family later in the day.
Here's some tasty international news. Pizza lovers down under, listen up. The pizza chain is looking for a taste tester for its garlic bread in Brisbane, Australia. The job, which was posted on LinkedIn on Tuesday, will pay someone $30 Australian an hour, or $20 American, to spend a day taste testing at the Domino's regional headquarters. If you live on the other side of Australia, don't lose hope. Domino's will pay for a hotel and return domestic flight if you are chosen and don't live in driving distance.
We had a marvelous time.
Those were good days.
Why do chicken coops only have 2 doors? If they had 4 doors, it would be a chicken sedan.
That's it for today's podcast.
And remember,
If it's news,
it's at the Academy.